Hello, everyone, and welcome to the quarterfinals of the StarCityGames.com Minneapolis Open Weekend, part of Season 1 of the 2018 SCG Tour, brought to you by the wonderful people over at Twitch and Ultimate Guard. Cedric Phillips and Patrick Sullivan, we are here in the booth. Nick Miller down in the feature match area getting his eyes on what is in front of us right now. Jim Davis, number 1 overall seed, playing Jeskai Control against Carl Johnson, number 8 overall seed, playing Eldrazi Tron. You picked this match for us to watch at home, and that's exactly what we're going to do, as Davis will start things off with a Scalding Tarn, Steam Vents, and probably a Serum Visions. Patrick.
Jim Davis, the number 1 overall seed, and on top of that, a very popular streamer. Not surprised here to see him win the favor of the crowd.
It's a Serum Visions. Jim will draw a card. He will scry 2, and as you said earlier in the weekend, if he splits the difference or keeps both on top, we're done. Isn't that how it works?
Yeah, we just move on to the next game. There we are.
Yep.
Let's bring up the sideboards.
I guess we it'll be an Urza's Power Plant here for Carl Johnson into an Expedition map. He could have Tron as soon as turn number 3. As we head back over to Davis, he'll keep that Supreme Verdict on top of the deck. That was the draw. You mentioned there is a bad half of the deck for Jim to draw here. Cards like Spell Snare, not particularly effective, which Jim does have a copy of in his hand. But there are some real doozies here as well, as Davis will sacrifice the Scalding Tarn yet again. See what land Jim wants to go for here this time. Wouldn't be surprised to see a Hallowed Fountain on the way. As a 2015 Players Champion, we'll get a Hallowed Fountain, fall down to 14. We'll see what comes next. New card coming. Scry 2. Couple of lands here for Jim. Picked up a Sphinx's Revelation with the draw off of Serum Visions. Not the ideal time to find that, I think. I think he'd prefer to find that a little bit later in the game.
Yeah, right. This is not the best time for that.
Yeah, but he will split the difference on the scry, going to keep a land, and now Johnson will draw. Does Johnson have another Tron piece? The answer is yes. That's in Urza's mind, which means he can go to Urza's Tower here in a bit, but he'll play a Chalice of the Void on 1, and Spell Snare will actually do something here. That's pretty big.
Yeah, Davis has 1 copy in the main deck. Not the easiest card to have be profitable here. That's the best case scenario.
Flooded Strand, the land here for Davis now as we go back over to Johnson. Does Johnson have the Tower of Power? The answer is yes. Okay, so he doesn't even need the Expedition map to do anything.
Does he have the dreaded Thought Knot Matter Reshaper setup?
One of your favorite setups as we'll see a Thought Knot placed onto the stack. It's going to resolve. Jim will reveal the hand. Cryptic Command Island, Sphinx's Revelation, Supreme Verdict, and Lightning Helix, the 5 cards Jim is working with. It'll be 4 here after Thought Knot's here. Select something.
I would be surprised if it was anything other than Supreme Verdict, unless Johnson has some large Planeswalker to follow up with next turn, in which case Cryptic Command enters the conversation.
Johnson will write down the contents of Davis's hand, and then he will select a card. And it will be the Supreme Verdict. Uh-oh. Is it?
Oh, no.
Is it time for old Matter Reshaper 2? Yeah.
Boom.
That's the 1-2 combo, folks.
Eldrazi's answer to Voice of Resurgence.
Davis will mosey on along here and sacrifice a Flooded Strand.
And you think it's kind of free to be taking these points early on in the game, that the game is going to be determined by being overwhelmed in one direction or the other. Davis has taken 7 points of damage off of his lands, and that really matters here because now the threats that are on the battlefield represent a 2-turn clock. Davis might be forced to use the Cryptic Command defensively, opening up the door for Johnson to resolve another large spell.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how Jim wants to use this Lightning Helix, too, because I could see him just saying, you know what, I need to just kill this Matter Reshaper and hope that what she reveals is not too bad. Let's see what the reveal is going to be here from Carl. It'll be in all his dust. That's not too bad.
Yep, that's okay with Davis.
That's something that Davis can keep track of. He'll know how to play into it, for lack of a better term. And he actually doesn't need any permanents to win the game. He can win the game with Celestial Colonnade in most instances, as Jim will actually pick up a copy of Field of Ruin, which is pretty timely.
Field of Ruin's not shabby here. I don't think he can play it this turn because he likely has to leave up Cryptic Command mana, and with the Sacred Foundry, he can't play a colorless land. Also, with Johnson having access to the Expedition map, he can't really cut Johnson off of Tron next turn. So Field of Ruin might come into play down the line, but for this turn, I think Davis just wants to play the island.
Well, the island, it will be the play there for Jim, leaving Cryptic Command at the ready. He'll play some of his cards upside down in his hand so that he remembers that Carl Johnson has seen some of them. The only one that Carl Johnson does not know right now is the Field of Ruin that he drew for the turn. Cavern of Souls will be the play here. That'll name Eldrazi most likely. And now Johnson will be tapping some mana for a Reality Smasher. The attack step will be declared, and Davis, as you mentioned, Patrick, may have to use Cryptic Command defensively now.
Yeah, you would really like to cash this in for a pure 2-for-1. You want to be countering and drawing, and now with Cavern of Souls, that's no longer a possibility. So he may simply have to tap and draw here, save himself 9 points of damage, hope to find a Supreme Verdict.
Of which I believe Jim is playing 2 copies of this weekend.
And one has already been exiled by the initial Thought-Knot Seer. So he's down to 1 copy, and Snapcaster Mage is in play because the Thought-Knot Seer exiled it.
Well, this isn't pretty, and you can tell by Jim's body language this is not his favorite line of play, but it's the play that he needs to make. So he will use Cryptic Command to tap those creatures and draw a card. Truth be told, I think Davis is on the hunt for a card like Path to Exile right now, too. That will do some real work in situations like this. Search for his count is okay. Negate, not so much, as Davis is in some real trouble now.
And Davis is very light on Cryptic Commands in his deck this weekend. I believe Jonathan Rossum is on the full 4. Davis only playing 2. It's sometimes not ideal against the Eldrazi deck because of Cavern of Souls, but all they do is play big main phase spells and then attack. So it's hard for Cryptic Command to be that bad. And with Davis only have 2 copies and only 2 copies of Supreme Verdict in the main, it's very challenging for him to defend himself.
Well, we're going to head back over to Carl Johnson now. Search for Wisconsin now on to the battlefield. And this will be interesting because you got to remember that Carl Johnson does have that All Is Dust in hand. He could use that to take care of the Search for Wisconsin, though Jim does have a negate. So we could have a little bit of back and forth there. If he has another copy of Reality Smasher, this game gets real tough for Jim, and he does. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. 5, 10, 14 damage. Davis could be falling down to 2 here after this, and it looks like he will be.
I mean, his hand offers no defense, so taking the shot.
See if Davis has any interest in using this Field of Ruin right now.
And the leftovers in Davis's hand are some of the stray one-ofs here that are not really for this matchup. He's got a copy of Negate, and he's got a copy of Sphinx's Revelation. He was even pretty fortunate, I would argue, to cash in the Spell Snare for profit in this game. So you're seeing the stuff on the margins, the random bullets. It does matter. I think Davis skimped a little bit for this matchup with his Game 1 configuration, and you're seeing a lot of that on display right now.
Expedition map will be played and sacrificed here by Carl Johnson. Now, Davis does have some good cards to draw to, at least some cards that could potentially buy him a little bit of time. One of them is Snapcaster Mage in this instance. Snapcaster Mage could allow him to recast Cryptic Command from his graveyard, especially because I think he has some interest in transforming that Search for his Kanta.
But when you get down to it, this is really about whether or not Davis can find the remaining copy of Supreme Verdict in his deck.
Absolutely. Ghost Quarter will go to the grip there for Carl Johnson. He's already played a land, so not a ton left for Carl to do here. Again, the hand right now for Carl Johnson is Ghost Quarter and All Is Dust. Davis, going to take a look at the graveyard. Now he is going to go after, it looks like Urza's Mine. Johnson will float, activate this, and likely search for an Urza's Mine so he can keep Tron online. Yep. Davis will search for a basic land with Field of Ruin.
And I like Johnson being really patient there with his expedition maps. Didn't want to sacrifice until Davis committed to using the Field of Ruin on something.
So for Davis, which land is he going to search up? He will go with the basic plains. Keep in mind, he does have triple blue right now. As Kanta, when it transforms, it will be able to produce a blue mana. So the play of Snapcaster Mage into Cryptic Command is still very much available. And that is merely a way to buy time for Davis, but it's better than nothing. As Davis will untap, he will trigger his search, and we'll see how he wants to go about using it. Take a look at that top card. He is going to keep that top card as Kanta will transform. So whatever it is that he drew, which is Snapcaster Mage, he was very much interested in because, again, Snapcaster Mage plus Cryptic Command is a way to get another turn and a couple of draw steps.
Yeah, and you can see that if it's Supreme Verdict on top of the deck, then it's no hesitation to leave it on top. Snapcaster Mage, you got to think about it for a second. It still gets you another card and then a draw step next turn. So it's not Supreme Verdict, but it's definitely worth keeping on top in that spot.
Urza's Mind will be the play there for Carl Johnson. Do want to take a quick look at Johnson's deck list as he does announce his attack step. He does have 4 copies of Walking Ballista. If he has drawn one of them, the game will end on the spot. Cryptic Command, tap and draw is the plan here for Johnson. Excuse me, for Davis. That'll work. Davis will draw a card. Has Johnson found Walking Ballista? As Davis has picked up a copy of Celestial Colonnade. So Davis is not out of the woods yet. He's still got some work to do. He will draw a card. Another copy of the Colonnade. If you're Jim, whew, boy, you can rev for what, 1?
And into what?
I think right now it involves finding Path Exiles.
It's rev for 1 into Path.
But even that's not great.
Yeah, I do not see that being very effective.
What he can do is rev for 1 into Path, kill Thought-Knot Seer. Maybe that'll draw him into another path, kill Reality Smash, but then he still gets trampled over.
Yeah.
So, yeah, none of it looks good right now for Davis, and I don't think he can find anything, and he can't. Carl Johnson will win game number 1 here over Jim Davis. Eldrazi Tron is up a game over Jeskai Control. Jim drew some of the bad cards there in game 1. Negate, Spell Snare, which did counter something, and the Rev at the wrong time.
Yeah, the bullets mattered, but in the wrong way.
So, we will go to the sideboards here. Both these players will take a look at their 15 cards. We'll do the same here after a quick break to hear from our sponsors. We are back. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan getting ready to watch game number 2 here between Jim Davis and Carl Johnson and Jeskai Control and Eldrazi Tron. For Davis, he'll be on the play here. He's got 2 Ancestral Vision, 2 Dispel, 2 Surgical Extraction, a whole bunch of one-ups here in Elspeth Sun's Champion, Blessed Alliance, Celestial Purge, Negate, Vendilion Click is its Staticaster, a Stony Silence, a Wear Chair, and Engineered Explosives.
I mean, not a whole lot here. The Elspeth Sun's Champion and the Blessed Alliance are both great. Those are easy to bring in. I don't know if the matchup is quite slow and grinding enough for Ancestral Vision. That is interesting to me. Though Davis has enough weak cards in his main deck, that maybe they come in. There's some fringe players here, like the Stony Silence, the Engineered Explosives, the Vidillion Click, but you're kind of straining at that point.
The other side of things here for Carl Johnson, currently up a game with his Eldrazi Tron deck. He has 2 Relic of Progenitors, 2 Torpor Orb, 2 Warping Whale, along with an All's Dust, a Dismember, a Grafdigger's Cage, a Karn Liberated, a Pithing Needle, a Ratchet Bomb, a Sky Sovereign, Council Flagship, Ugin the Spirit Dragon, and Wormcoil Engine.
I like bringing in the 1 copy of Pithy Needle as an answer to Azcanta and to Teferi. The additional copy of Karn Liberated, the Ugin, the Wormcoil Engine. I kind of want to be a little bit more threat dense here, and I like bringing in the 2 relics as a way to fight over Snapcaster Mage.
And those are the options there for both players. You see they are shuffling up and getting ready here for game number 3, so we'll give you some updates on our other 3 matches. John Philip Whetstone and Sam Cocherella are going to game number 3, as Burn and Humans are all tied up for Dylan Hand and Victor Wood. That's Humans versus John. They are also going to game number 3. And for your number 3 overall seed, that's Jonathan Rossum. His matchup against number 6, Peter Terbergen. Well, Rossum is currently up a game. Jeskai Control doing some controlling of Affinity. As we have more updates, we will, of course, share them with you. And the winner of this match will play the winner of Whetstone and Cocherella. Again, that is Burn versus Humans. And Davis going to do a little bit more work here on his sideboarding. And again, he will be on the play here for game number 3. While Jim does shuffle up, we'll learn a little bit more about him. Number 7 on our leaderboard here in Season 1 of the SCG Tour. For Jim, we've seen him grow quite a bit as a player over the past handful of years. The member of Team BCW, 33 years old, from Long Island, New York. This is top 8 number 15 on the resume. Could be open win number 3. He's got those 3 invitational top 8s, and 2015 Players Champion is the roller hockey player who went to Stony Brook University. He plays bass, sings backup vocals in the rock band Teach Me Human. He does Magic full-time as well, as most of you are pretty aware of at this point. Writes articles for Star City Games. He streams, he coaches, he travels to events, and he wins quite a bit too. Does Jim Davis.
And it's easy to forget. He was on he's mentioned, he was on the precipice of quitting Magic leading up to the Players' Championship in 2015. Ended up winning that event, kind of reinvigorating his Magic career, and now he is essentially doing it full time between playing the tournament, streaming, and coaching, as you mentioned.
And his game continues to improve on a week-by-week basis. You see Jeskai Control here, number 1 overall seed. Pretty close matchup here for Davis. Game 1 certainly did not go his way, but as I mentioned at the top, he's already beaten Carl Johnson once here this weekend. Isn't too afraid of the matchup, but I would say he's a bit of an underdog in game number 1. Things do get better after sideboard.
Yeah, he gets to clean up a little bit of the bottom end of his deck, which is really bad. It was unfortunate for Davis. They drew so much of it, and it really came back to bite him there in game 1.
Both these players will take a look at their 7-card hands. Again, Davis will be on the play. That doesn't look like the face of confidence to me. But what do I know? I'm just up here in the booth.
Looking at, from what I can tell, Steam Vents and an island. I don't know if there's a third lane in there. To ferry multiple Snapcaster Mages. If this hand doesn't have a white source of mana and doesn't have a Serum Vision, this is likely a mulligan from what I can see.
Well, he doesn't appear to be convinced of that just yet. Maybe he's convincing himself to take a mulligan or convincing himself to keep the hand. I'm thinking he may get there. That is a Steam Vents tap, pass the turn back. Over to Carl Johnson, who has an Eldrazi Temple. You know about this E-Tron deck. As there's an island. It doesn't look like he has white mana.
I didn't get an ideal look at his hand, but this hand seems quite poor.
Well, we're going to get a good look at it right now because here's a turn 2 Thought Knot Seer.
Reveals all sins.
Yeah, sure does, doesn't it? 3 Snapcaster Mages, a Field of Ruin, which is your white source of mana.
I thought the Field of Ruin was a different card.
Mm-hmm.
This hand's still pretty sketchy, but I think Field of Ruin is probably enough to keep it.
I would keep this hand basically every time.
Yeah, if he had a Path plus Snapcaster plus Field of Ruin, it's on the line. But I thought the Field of Ruin was a non-land, and I thought that's an obvious mulligan at that point.
I think if I'm Jim, I would mulligan this hand on the draw. I would keep it on the play because the Field of Ruin lets you break up Tron because you're on the play. It lets you break up Tron so they can't get to it. But also, if their start is Eldrazi Temple and then a land, you get to blow up the Eldrazi Temple, and they don't get to play a Thought Knot Seer ideally as quickly as possible. So, I actually understand the rationale behind the keep. What ends up hurting Jim here is that he gets blown out because Carl has Temple.
And not only does he have Temple, but the first draw step was a third Snapcaster Mage, already bad, and then the turn to Thought-Knot Seer takes away the path.
Yep.
So now your hand is 3 Snapcaster Mages, no spell to speak of, a Teferi that Johnson knows about, and you're not close to casting. So Davis kept I think a weak hand, but not an obvious mulligan by any stretch, but things have broken very poorly for him thus far.
In the draw step, we're going to see Jim use Field of Ruin to take care of one of those temples, which I think is pretty smart. You want to slow down Carl Johnson's development. You also like to get yourself a white source of mana. So, Temple will bite the dust. Johnson's going to be able to search for a Waste. Davis will be able to search for a Plains. And now the hope is that you don't see maybe a third Temple in Reality Smasher, because if that's the case, the game just might be over, folks.
Yep. And Johnson before would have to worry about a second Snapcaster and a double block, but now Davis has left himself without enough mana to play that. So Johnson has a clean shot at doing whatever this turn, plus attacking with the Thought-Knot Seer.
Now again, Johnson has already drawn a card for the turn, so that was during the draw step. He'll play an Urza's Power Plant, Will Johnson. We might see something like a Walking Blister. We're actually going to see a Chalice for 1. That's a tough one, too, because that's going to shut off paths. I don't imagine bolts are still in the deck, and, of course, Serum Visions is going to be iced as well.
Yep.
Things are only getting more difficult here for Davis as we go. He will untap, and he will draw a card. Picked up a copy of Sacred Foundry. Not ideal.
The hope here, though, if you're Davis, is if you can turtle up a little bit, even if you don't have spells to pair with these Snapcaster Mages, you gum up the works a little bit, maybe at a Trump block, and hopefully Teferi is just enough on its own to carry the game.
Yeah, well, Teferi is a pretty darn good card, so it could be. As there's a Tower of Power, I think we're going to see a Reality Smasher, and we will. That will resolve. Jim has got to jump at the chance to double block here, and he can't do that fast enough.
Yep. I think I would have preferred for Johnson to hold off for one more turn here. When you know about the Teferi, I think you've got to maintain as much integrity on the battlefield as possible. And that just felt like a little an attack that didn't generate a whole lot of value and makes it more likely that Davis can get to Teferi and stabilize the battlefield that way.
And Davis is going to be able to do that because he does have a 5th land here in Scalding Tarn. He can play the Teferi, put the Reality Smasher back in to Johnson's deck, and all of a sudden, if Johnson doesn't have another Reality Smasher or Walking Ballista, Teferi can start running away with this game.
And I want to clarify that because that's an important point. If Johnson here has another Reality Smasher in hand or even a Walking Ballista, then I actively like this play because it makes it so likely Davis just does what's obvious. Get the Thought-Knot Seer off the battlefield, play Teferi, and now the battlefield's clean. And it's so valuable for Johnson in this spot with Davis's hand as soft as it is, really banking on this Teferi, that if you're able to walk him down a road where he deploys the Teferi in a spot that looks good and you end up losing it, Johnson's position becomes commanding.
Here is Teferi, and it is time to tuck that away. Now with Reality Smasher and how Teferi interacts, Jim doesn't have to discard a card.
Right.
So Reality Smasher is going to go away. Now keep in mind, Johnson has 2 Tron pieces out there. I think he may have, yep, Magic Stuff. Magic Stuff. What's this? Okay. That's the card that Jim used to beat Todd Anderson in the finals of the Players' Championship, and now it is fighting back against him. There goes Teferi. And for how unkind the camera was to Carl Johnson earlier in the weekend, everything's coming up Carl right now.
Yeah, we've got 3 straight games of him just spinning the ball on his finger.
Oh, yeah. Path Exile the draw. That one's going to be no good. And there you do see Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Jim needed 1 turn to make it alive out of that card because he has Cryptic Command in his hand.
Yeah, he would have been in, I think, a very solid position. It still comes down to, did Johnson have another answer? Because even he rips Tron there, plays Ugin, that's spectacular. Even if he has something like Ballista for 2, finish off your Teferi, his position's still great. Mm-hmm. So I don't exactly know what was in his hand, but it didn't have to be something as dramatic as Ugin for his position to become very good.
Well, that is a Ghost Quarter. And Ugin is going to move on up, it appears. Jim is going to take 3, and the Spirit Dragon is starting to dominate this game. There you do see the powerful Planeswalker. That ultimate, you gain 7 life, draw 7 cards, and put up to 7 permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield. again, is an ability that Jim is familiar with, and we could see happen here.
And a combo with the Tron lands, because you have so much mana.
You get it. You get it.
Works in a variety of directions.
Looks like Ghost Quarter is going to go after his team vents there, so Jim is going to search up a land maybe. Yes, okay. And I have to imagine he has another island, and he does. I'm a little surprised at that Ghost Quarter.
Yeah, I'm trying to see here. He's got 1 mountain, 1 plains, 3 islands, so it's pretty clear you're not cutting him off.
Here's Karn Liberated. Well, I think I've got a feeling what Jim's play is going to be. And it's going to be counter and probably bounce Ugin, yes. And now the hope here, if you're Jim, is that you draw Field of Ruin or something similar to blow up these Tron lands.
Yep. And it would also be really good to draw Field of Ruin. You blow up the Tron lands and you shuffle away the Reality Smasher.
Yes. Field of Ruin may be the best draw in his entire deck. It's time to find one if he's got more. He drew a Serum Visions.
You got to go for it. You got to go for it.
You got to try.
You got to try.
His hand.
Johnson's been a sniper with his chalice so far, but you got to try.
Jim actually, man, that's tough because Jim actually would have taken any land there too, because he has Snapcaster Mage plus Snapcaster Mage plus Cryptic Command. He would have been happy to do that. There is Reality Smasher.
And that chalice is really problematic.
Mm-hmm. Do you dare path here? You got to work through Chalice and a Reality Smasher trigger? Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I think he's just gonna shatter the chalice and then
Okay. You're right.
then path.
You're right. I was getting very excited there. Forgot he had Wear Tear in his hand.
He's okay.
This is interesting. This is winnable.
Oh, for sure.
He can come back here.
No question.
There's path.
And
Trigger he needs to discard.
Trigger.
He's, of course, going to discard Serum Visions. He's got Snapcaster Mage in hand. This is doable. Depends on what the follow-up is here for Johnson. If Johnson has no follow-up and is stuck with just Ugin in hand, and Jim finds another land that produces a blue mana, this is doable.
Yeah. Really needs a land this turn, though.
Yes. And for what it's worth, a Cryptic Command is fine, too.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. There are draws here. Now, again, this is predicated on Johnson having nothing to do post-combat, which I find to be rather unlikely, as here is a Walking Ballista. But that strikes me as somewhat beatable, too.
Well, Davis is at 7. It's sort of concealed here, but that Ballista is lethal next turn.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much mana, and you get to double dip, basically, because you get your attack, plus you get to dump all your mana in after the fact.
Davis will pass the turn back. That's not the land he was looking for. It all depends on how Johnson plays his turn, however, as Johnson will draw a card. If he wants to try to go for the win, that involves him putting a lot of mana into the Ballista. Johnson will play a Chalice for 1 again.
Yeah, clarify the game state. If Jim has a path, make him show it right now.
Mm-hmm. So that will resolve. In comes the Walking Ballista. Will Carl Johnson dump a lot of mana into the Ballista?
He doesn't need to dump a lot.
Well, there's a Blessed Alliance. All right. Problem here for Davis is that Ugin is very castable. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and Jim is just looking at a Snapcaster Mage. Ugin the Spirit Dragon will resolve. That is going to go up yet again. And Jim will fall down to 2. Is there a draw in the deck that he can have? Yes, there is. Teferi, are you there? Teferi, can you save me? Teferi can tuck Ugin away. But I think if he drew Teferi, it would already be in play.
Yeah, there wouldn't be a hesitation here. And you can't, even if you draw land 6, you can't go Snapcaster Cryptic because Johnson just untaps and replays.
Now, again, Jim can play on.
He can Snapcaster the Blessed Alliance.
Correct.
Go up to 6, and then down to 3.
As you like to say, it's a hard way to do it.
It's a hard.
but it is a way. Here's Snapcaster Mage, going to recast Blessed Alliance, get a little bit of life. Up to 6, then down to 3. The follow-up here for Johnson. Does he have one? He's reaching for mana. Leads me to believe that he does. Is it something like a Reality Smasher or an Endbringer? Boy, this game is not easy. This is not an easy game. Jim looking at Serum Visions.
Time to cast it.
And we go back to Jim. Is it Teferi? It'll be a Serum Visions. That's going to get countered, and that is going to do it. Carl Johnson going to win this match here over Jim Davis, 2-0. Eldrazi Tron just too much to overcome there.